2 more coming, so
We'll share them.
Yeah. Hey everybody, so you guys are all here for advanced physics, correct?
Yes.
Awesome.
Excellent.
We're not going to talk about physics, we are going to talk about video games. Something I personally love. My name is Dave Nieves. I write for a place called Comics Beat. Sometimes it's about comics, most of the time it's about video games. The people to my, my sides. To my left are some of the voices from your favorite video games. We are expecting 2 more. As soon as they get here, we will embarrass them for showing up late. But mostly we'll love them as much as we do. So I'm going to, since there's 7 people, I cannot do 7 introductions. I'm not that capable. So I'm going to let these fine people introduce themselves and where you will know them from. Starting to my left with Steven.
Hi, everybody. I'm Steve J. Palmer, and I provide the voice and performance capture for Bill Williamson in both Red Dead Redemption and Red Dead Redemption 2.
Yeah! Hi, I'm Carolina Ravassa. You probably know me from Overwatch. I do the voice of Sombra online.
Yeah! She even said Sombra. Sombra. Love that.
Hi, I'm Anjali Bhimani. I provide the comic relief for Carolina.
Always.
My life. You also may know me from Overwatch and Fallout 4 and a lot of Indian doctors on television.
Yes.
And a lot of judgmental aunties on television as well.
Oh, I want to get into all of that. So.
Oh, excellent. Delightful.
And last but not least for now.
I am Carlos Ferro, and you know me as Dom from Gears of War.
Woo!
And, oh yeah. Leonardo da Vinci and Assassin's Creed, and a bunch of other very exciting stuff. Thanks for coming, guys.
Spoiler, Dom's still dead, right?
He's still dead.
Shoot!
Okay, so if you've never been to one of my panels, this is all about you guys. So when I say, hey, the next Gears of War has Carlos and it's coming out tomorrow, you guys make some noise, right?
Thank
And when I say Overwatch is canceled, no more servers, what do you guys do?
Hi.
Exactly. So now you guys know the rules, so we're going to get started. So first of all, I want to go into with my group here. It is hard to find a common thread between 7 people. I did manage to find out that you were all voice actors.
It's really good, man.
I know, I'm detective work here.
The Google helps.
Your research is incredible.
The Google. There you go.
But you all, some of you work together, some of you haven't, so we're going to find some of the common themes to talk about. And I do want to get into each of yours most famous projects and some behind-the-scenes stories. So but first I want to start out with you guys. How exactly were each of you exposed to video games? Because I don't know if any of you were actually aiming to be voice actors, and this was the field that you chose, or this was something you sort of fell in love with as somebody introduced it to you. Steven, we'll go with you.
I pretty much just, across the board, I personally just wanted to be an actor. And it is a specific industry of voice acting because it is a unique technique when you have to audition as far as, the distance from the mic and be able to rest your voice and enunciation. But when I auditioned for Red Dead Redemption back in December of 2008, I usually my agent didn't have a specific voiceover department, just sent me out for this unknown Western video game. And I drove in the rain and went, and I had no idea what I was doing because if you play Red Dead or Grand Theft Auto, you know how secretive Rockstar games can be. You won't know anything until they're ready to tell you it's time for you to know. And the same thing goes with their cast. So I went to this audition. There were fold-out tables like this with props on it, and they were like, put this holster on, we got 8 hats, pick one, do this. And I'm auditioning with props, and I'm like, the last time I did this, I was a sophomore in high school. I'd never seen anything like this. It was the most fun audition I've ever had in my life. And that was it. Boom, Christmas happened, New Year's happened, and I never heard anything back. Never got a call back. And eventually my agent called me like the second week of January. He's like, remember before Christmas that video game thing you did? I'm like, yeah, what, are they starting to call people back? And he's like, you just booked the bad guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I was like, what?
Nice.
You know, and that was it.
So were you always sort of, when you saw that untitled Western video game, was it something that you were a fan of in the genre?
Oh, well, yes, I was a gamer myself.
Okay.
And so, yeah, so, well, I guess I went on a tangent to get towards a point. I love video games. I played, and it's not something where, as an actor, I'm specifically saying, oh, I'd like to do video games or this, but I was like, I love video games. This would be great if it doesn't suck, whatever it is, sure. And you go, and I knew at that point, because I had so much fun auditioning, I'm like, if this game is as fun as to play as it is what to audition for it, then this is going to be a hell of a lot of fun. And lo and behold, it was. So, yeah, no, I love video games, and the fact that I'm in one now,
And you get to be the bad guy, which is always the best part, right?
It's the hate love is great.
So before I get to Anjali and Carolina, I would like the people who just joined us to introduce themselves. Please.
Hey, hi, I'm Greg Berger. Game-wise, it's Final Fantasy. Game-wise, it's Spyro.
You brought a dragon to Avalor? I hate dragons!
Anyway, happy to be with you, and lots more games and shows, and I've been at it for quite some time. I only go where I'm invited, but happily I've been invited to some really fun parties.
Me? I'm Paul Eiding. I'm Colonel Campbell in Metal Gear Solid. I'm, what else? God of War. Zeus and Great Digger in 1 and 2 on Theseus. Skyrim. I'm Septimus
You all a
Signus.
Skyrim fan. Don't even
Skyrim? Septimus Signus and Gomas Toadfish. And Belvier, or what else? Fallout 3, I'm like 17 different characters.
Nice.
I'm not kidding.
I love them.
On Fallout 4, good morning, Vault-Tec calling. I'm the Vault-Tec rep. Just a ton of games.
Your IMDb page alone fills this entire house. So
And
you get all of that.
I'm a lucky guy. I'm just really lucky and happy to be here. Cool.
Thank you guys for joining us. So, Carolina, how did you get into voice acting for video games?
I called 1-800-Blizzard, and they just said, hey, we're looking to fill Sombra, and boom.
It's magic.
That's all it
It's
takes,
just
right?
that easy.
So good luck, guys. Good
night.
I was an actress since I was really young, not professionally, but I just loved it. And for me, it's just a branch of theater, film, commercial work, anything that comes that we can submit to audition for and book. So Sombra is one of the many things I auditioned for, and luckily they loved my sass and humor and sarcasm, and it worked for Sombra really well. So that was that, but you know, it's a long time in the making. So it's just a bunch of auditions and rejections, and then getting a few here and there.
So that's awesome, and we've all learned there is an 800 number to break into any business you want to get into. You just have to find it. Nobody's going to tell you. Anjali, how did you get into it?
I actually was a gamer from a very young age. I started with tabletop. When I was 8 years old, I started playing Dungeons & Dragons because my brother introduced it to me, and I wanted to do everything that my brother did. And kept gaming tabletop and video games pretty much through, for a long time. And then, for a long time. I want to say for the next 20, 30 years. And then I just dropped it for a little while, and I came back to it through being able to perform in Overwatch and Fallout 4. And like Carolina said, I'm fond of saying it's a branch of the tree, because when you're an actor, you really just want to tell stories in every possible way you can, whether it's at the dinner table or on a stage or on screen or in a game. And gaming is such a great, games are such an incredible way to tell stories where you guys get to be part of the story. And so for us, it's really exciting to be a part of that and to get to be a part of that. And the auditions came in, like Carolina said, it just came in the same way as our other acting auditions would come in. It's just exciting to be invited to that party. So.
Awesome.
It's a
Now,
party.
It is
Carlos.
definitely a party.
I know you pretty much just hound people until they give you work, right?
Pretty much. I blackmail people.
Oh, yes.
It works. That's it. Go ahead. No. I think we all have in common that we're all like classically trained actors that like pounded the pavement, and all of a sudden these new consoles happen. At least I've always been a gamer, and for me, I had my PlayStation 2, and it just, these auditions happened when we were still all doing, hey, he went over there, really, did he? I don't know. It was all that kind of shit. And these new consoles, Xbox and and later games for PlayStation 2, they wanted actors. They stopped just doing dubs, and my story was I just showed up breaking apart a script, trying to justify everything I was saying and doing. And it worked out. So like Gears and Assassin's Creed, they were the first games that I ever auditioned for that they gave me the Bible of like what's going on in the universe.
Oh, that's cool.
And yeah, no, and you know, it gave me something to work from. But I at least in the beginning, like we're talking 10 years ago, I approached it very much like I was working on a show or a TV show or a play. And I tell everybody the most common question I think that we all get is, how can I do what you do? And the answer usually is not well received, which is, we all studied, man. We all prepared so that we could eliminate competition like crazy.
That's
And
not the answer we want to hear. We want to hear
the shortcut.
We want to
You want to hear 1-800-BLIZZARD.
Blizzard, there you go.
But
No, that was my story essentially.
yeah, and that is a very common theme amongst all you, everybody on the stage, is you are all shooting to be actors and trained as actors. So it shows, and we're going to get into that. Greg, I want to know, how did you get into voice acting for video games?
Well, I have a sort of long and wonderful history in animation, and it was a logical outgrowth. However, there's a skill set to interactive gaming voicing that is separate and distinct. Actually, it's kind of meandered over into animation in general, but most recording, because of that Bible, because of that book, because you can tell the guy in the room who is the game developer, because he looks like he hasn't slept in 5 years, because he hasn't. And he's created a virtually infinite number of eventualities for almost any scenario in action. So things, by definition, normally have to be done in a vacuum. You're asking, this is a skill that you have to possess that almost is channeling. You have to be in touch with the other side of the glass and sort of feel it. Your relationship is between you and the director, who paints you in and out of intense, galactic, or whatever scenes that involve other people who may not have even been in, may not have been cast yet. And yet you have to have a relationship with the director that's so intense that you almost feel where things have to go, because they have so many pages and eventualities to cover that, in my case, and I don't know if this is everybody, but they basically let me go line to line to line to line and only stop me when the flow is not right for the show. And you may be the first person in that scene that involves 5 people, but the director and the other side of the glass, it's a trust thing. They know the music that they want to create for this given situation. So it's technical. And I'd like to say that those of us who have longevity and work and maintain and sustain in this line of work are able to bring a creativity to something that is essentially technical, and also bring a technicality to the part of it that's creative. Sorry if that's confusing, I just confused myself. But I think that's what it is. It's more fragmented than most of us who are actors like. The only game I can think of where we recorded ensemble was Halo Wars, and everybody in the scene was there for every scene. And it's fantastic and contagious when you're allowed to play with the other actors in a scene. But you have to be able to isolate yourself and just go with the flow of that really creatively frustrating situation where you're in a booth by yourself, contributing your part of a scene. So how did I do it? I brought every skill I ever had for any other line and applied it to that. But there's an intensity between actor and director that's not like any other type of voice recording.
Paul, what about you? How did you get into this?
Well, I'm an actor like everybody else. Stage actor first, film, TV, voiceover stuff came after thank goodness. My first video games were for knowledge adventure. They were games like
Edutainment, they call
yes,
it.
Math Blaster and things like that. Way back in the day. It was before Blizzard was really Blizzard. It's always a question, was Metal Gear the first one, or was Diablo? I'm the narrator for Diablo. Anybody old enough for Diablo, the first one?
Yeah, I'm old enough for Diablo. A lot of you are.
I'm the guy who talks about the Morocco, and I tell the whole, the narrator of the story, and I'm also Lazarus, and then StarCraft. After that, I'm the guy who says, you must construct additional pylons. Yeah, people either love me or hate me. Yeah, thanks. We have a mutual hate relationship for 30-some years now.
We got history.
Yeah. Anyway, so that was kind of the first ones that happened, and then it just happened. It just kept happening after that. And the key for me is always, we tell everyone who wants to do this sort of work, take an acting class if you've never taken one.
Yeah.
Or
And an improv class.
Yeah, of course.
Because they come in really handy. The only time I've actually, in a video game, been able to really improv is I worked on Ratchet and Clank. And there were two characters, two old battle bots. And they basically let Zephyr and Kronk make up their own stuff. They said, okay, let's have a relationship between you guys. So they let us do that. That's the only time. Everything else has been completely scripted. The only time that in a video game that I've actually been able to work with the other actors was in Metal Gear Solid. Snake and Campbell, their relationship was so important that they let us work together. But usually it's you repeating lines and imagining that other person or that other creature or whatever on the other side of that microphone that you're talking to.
Awesome, thank you. So for everybody here, what I want to know is, was there a moment, or does anybody have any stories about, telling your friends or family that, or children, grandchildren, nieces, nephews that are playing these games, hey, that's me, and do they have any sort of like, that's not you?
I'll tell you this much. I have two daughters, both actors. Bad parenting, I apologize. My daughters are now 30 and 28. Neither of them have ever played a game that I've worked on. However, every guy they've dated have.
Oh!
So they have good taste.
Yeah.
They play games. And my daughters went to an arts high school in LA. And we had a program called Visiting Professionals, where we would bring in professional artists, dancers, singers, actors, to let the kids know what it's like in real life, not just academically. And one time, often the actors would always sit in the front of their chairs when Al Pacino would come in, or something like that. Or dancers would be at the front of it. In the back were always the techie guys. The guys who were like, and they were usually slumped in their chairs, kind of bored. And I knew these kids for 3 years as my daughters were there. No one knew what I did. We never talked about it. I was just a dad. And one time, I brought in David Hayter. David Hayter at this point had written X-Men and had just been contracted to write X-Men 2. And he was the voice of Snake in Metal Gear Solid. He came in, and all of a sudden, all the guys in the back wanted to move to the front. All the tech guys, the actor was like, oh, who's David Hayter? But the important people knew who he was. And while he was talking, he mentioned a scene that, he said, Paul, remember when we did this scene? And the kids had no idea that I was Colonel Campbell. And when they found that out, it was like, my stock went up really high because she said, now I don't know if the guys are going to like me for me or because I'm your daughter. Just take it any way you can get it.
Carlos, you got a story like that?
Say what?
Carlos?
Oh, me. My experience is almost exactly, I would say you did my punchline, is that I'll try to tell people when they'll mention Gears, or I'll see an Assassin's Creed tattoo, and I'm like, oh, Leonardo da Vinci. And they go, no, you're not. And I'm like, oh, and then I start doing my act. And I'm like, how exciting, you know, all that shit. And they're still like, no.
Chase them down and go like, I'm Da Vinci.
No, but you know, we're all actors, so my ego gets out of control. where I'm like, I taught a man how to fly. Like I'm auditioning for the part of me.
Don't you know who I am? I'm
Don't you know?
on
Don't you
IMDb.
get? And what's even stranger is the Gears people, you know, 'cause it's a shooter. You know, those gear heads out there know that it's a pretty intense group, you know, and especially with esports and competitive gaming, they know their shit. And so when I'm insisting, it becomes oddly confrontational, where I'm like, "Sup, bitches?" And they're like, "All right already, all right, I believe you. Get out of here." You know? And so yes, that has happened to me.
Just so we know, tier 1 cursing is allowed in this panel.
Tier 1.
Tier 1, no tier 2s.
That is.
I don't know what the tiers are.
I don't know what that is, man.
Okay.
So, Steven, you look like you've had a story you'd like to tell, right?
Well, yeah, no, I, with my story as far as like with family, I have an 8-year-old niece. It's my older sister's daughter.
And she plays Red Dead.
Okay. I'm the uncle, technically not the parent, so you can't judge me. Because all right, judge me.
Judge himself.
Yeah, right, stop it. All right. When I was home, and I was just home, because my family lives in Florida, and I was there for Collective Con Jacksonville a few weeks ago.
Specific?
I'm plugging the past tense. But she came and she got to sit with me at my booth, and she was, you know, geeking out. We basically went out in the field with Arthur on horseback in Red Dead and made sure there's no one around that would start firing. My sister let me put the game in the console and let her ride a horse in circles. And just did that and avoid rocks. So, and you know, there'd be no death whatsoever, and it worked, and then that's all she got, and she felt like she played the game.
Nice.
But as far as, you know, I like family or friends knowing of what I do, I've had people reach out to me on social media, like guys I went to high school with 25 years ago, saying, "Oh my God, I can't believe I was in a physics class with Bill Williamson," and I tell my kids, and they won't believe me, and you know, they're pulling all pictures of us in Boy Scouts or Indian guys, and it's like, that's Bill Williamson, and now it's, you know, friends from high school, it's like I got all their addresses, so now I'm mailing, you know, autographs to these kids.
That's nice of you. If I was in your spot, I would have forgotten everybody I ever knew.
Well, you know,
It says a lot about you, David.
Wow.
yeah,
Brutal.
I have a tier 4 word for you.
Oh, family show. Tier 4. Is it? I don't think we know tier 4.
I'm very curious because those of us have been doing this a long time. The phenomenon right now of things like Fortnite, Overwatch, Destiny is very different than just one console back. I'm curious about Overwatch and what do you guys encounter more than anything else at these shows that's different from what it may have been before?
Over who?
It's Overwatch.
It's a little indie. It's a little indie game you guys might have heard of.
Overwatch.
Go. You start.
I think one of what I was talking about before about how you guys get to step into the story of the game, I think one of the reasons that people really gravitate towards Overwatch and games like similar games is that when you see a hero that you can identify with on any level, whether it's their story, it's their ethnicity, I speak well, their background, anything, when you see one that you can identify with, then you can identify a hero in yourself, and you want to play that game more. And I think as characters have become more and more complex, like in Overwatch, each one of them has a very complex story. No one of them is defined by one thing. They are all defined by the unique combination of things that they make them. Blessings with you! Knock yourself out! I mean, don't hate the play, I hate the game, right? But so that sense that we can be the heroes of our own story is very empowering. And I think people of all ages can really get behind that. And I think we get a lot of people coming up and being inspired by those characters because they hear it every day and they're part of it every day, and very, very touching, and I think it's a new development in gaming.
I also think, I don't know enough about video games, but I do think that the phenomenon with Overwatch is that it's been so international, and the voices behind each character share not just something in common with them, but maybe the ethnicity, the language, the accent, whatever. So I feel very connected to my character, more than other characters I've played, and I think the same about all the characters, actors. So, and I think that that's why you guys have also connected, you know, to at least one of the characters, because it's so specific to your life. But one thing that I found interesting about first-person shooters that I didn't understand was, you know, we record our lines a million times and we don't know which version gets in-game. And I didn't know what ultimate that I had recorded ended up in-game. So I used to say, apagando las luces, thinking that's what you guys heard in the game. And a friend, fan, gamer said, Caro, I hate to correct you on your voice line, but you don't pull out the A so long, it's more, apagando las luces. And I was like, why are you correcting my stuff? And he's like,
That's the weirdest approach I've ever heard in my life.
No, and he goes, you need to understand that we play this game so much that your ultimate power triggers like an emotion in me. And if I hear it differently, it's like, what happened? There's a glitch in the system. So if you do it just the way we hear it in game, it actually like makes me nervous or something, because I know I'm gonna die at that moment. So it's like PTSD or something. So it is interesting that because you guys play for so long and you hear our voices in your, you know, headphones, it's almost like you are the characters more than we are. But that's what I found very interesting about this game versus, you know, a storyline like Red Dead where you're playing the character, but you're not always hearing the voice lines, you know, constantly. So that's an interesting thing for me.
And actually, there's a good point with Overwatch being, you know, this big worldwide phenomenon now. I'm genuinely curious. Was there ever a moment where, or a specific moment where you two realized that, wow, this is big?
Sorry.
Okay, that was amazing.
Sorry, I just turned into Beavis there for a second. For me, the first moment was actually a sort of a family moment. My husband's a musician, and he was out with a lead singer of his band. They're used to getting a lot of attention where they go. And he calls me and he's like, babe, I'm at this bar and I'm talking to these two people. And I was just like trying to find out what are they into, what's their thing, and the girl says, oh, I'm playing this new game. It's not out yet, but it's coming out. It's called Overwatch. And I said, oh, I think my girl's in that game. I think she's one of the characters. And her friend jumped up and said, don't tell me it's Symmetra. Don't tell me it's Symmetra. And he was like, no, I think it is. Hang on a second. Let me text my girl. And as soon as he said it was, this dude screamed and went running outside the bar. And was
Did
screaming.
you owe him money?
Into traffic.
Where is Symmetra?
Where is Symmetra? She owes me money. He's like, oh my God, I can't believe this. And so when he had that experience, and I'm used to it being very opposite, he was like, what game are you, what is the deal with this game? And just the fact that people were already, before the game even came out, really, really excited about it. That was my first moment of it. That, and when my brother told my nephew, hey, Anjuben, that's what the kids call me, Anjuben is this character in the next Blizzard game, and he was like, wait, what? I don't...
Cool factor, man.
What? Yeah.
So now you become the favorite.
Auntie's
Well,
cool.
you know, Auntie wasn't so cool when she did Broadway and big stuff, but when she was on Dog of the Blog and when she did Overwatch, now I've got cachet with the kids,
So
and my
true.
life is set. I'm good.
Hey, this is a tangent to just character and voice and identifiability, but I've had 2 occasions that I can think of that are fantastic, where my animated history drifted over into interactive gaming. I go all the way back with Paul to Transformers Generation 1.
Me Grimlock, me Dinobot leader.
So, thanks. So, when they were doing the game Transformers Devastation, which is a fantastic game, the game developer, Matt Teager, I didn't know him. He had a meeting with me. He said, I'm pitching you to Hasbro for the game, and I want to know if you're still able to do whatever. But obviously the voice is a resource that if you take care of it, it serves you for a lifetime. Anyway, he said, I'm insisting that you be in the game. So this is like a real pat on the back to any of us.
Of course.
That something that you did becomes something that you do. You know, getting the gig is the greatest thing in the world. Getting called back after the fact is even greater. So that happened in Transformers Devastation, and interestingly enough, because they were able to, and the graphics were so sophisticated, they went very dark and cinematic on all of the characters, and some of the origin story altered. It's an unbelievable fandom that goes with any of the twists and turns the franchise takes and still stays loyal, which blows my mind. And then it happened again. They just did a Spyro Reignited trilogy, and they had me back as Ripto. And they had every option in the world, but they wanted to do that homage, do that tip of the hat to things as they were. So those things make me hugely just self-satisfied in this personal success category. It means something that happened.
No,
I just want to add that.
No, that's awesome. Just real quick, Carolina, I want to know, what was the moment for Overwatch for you? That you just realized that this thing was big.
I was lucky enough to get invited to the BlizzCon where Sombra was revealed. And I didn't realize they had been teasing her to the fans for 8 months. I had no idea, so I was chilling. But I'm in the audience as they have the screen up and they're doing the intro to whatever's happening at BlizzCon. And then there's a slight glitch, and I had recorded all the lines for that short video, the infiltration 8-minute short. And so I said to my friend, oh, I think this is me, I think. And as soon as she pops up on screen, the 30,000 people watching were freaking out, and I was scared, man. I was like, what's happening? Because I thought it was a surprise. I didn't realize they'd been waiting for her, and all of a sudden she's up on the screen. So, and then they told me that there were millions of people watching online from all over the world, and I was like, woo! So that was when I was like, oh, okay, maybe this is big. And then that, like, my Twitter just like exploded, and I was like, I don't know what's happening. I can't sleep. So there's a little bit of that nuttiness.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So we're going to get into your guys' questions
No, but
right now.
Go.
Just
We have one story here that.
Paul.
Go ahead, please.
Hi.
go ahead, Paul.
Paul, tell that story.
I know that there's some, the whole idea of bringing back a character. I've got a character that I did in Diablo 1 in '98 that they brought back to put into Heroes of the Storm
Fantastic.
called Mephisto. Now, this is not a character that little children should be playing.
Wow.
Because he's one of the brothers, he's the Lord of Hatred, I think he is. He's a real sweet character. But it's one of those things where everybody gets to play against everybody else. It's like interesting. But for me, knowing a game was a big one was Metal Gear.
And that is actually something I have been dying to know ever since I was told that I would be on the stage with you. How weird is it to be in a Hideo Kojima game? Is there sort of just this weird factor that goes on the entire time? Is he a genuinely normal person?
I didn't meet him on the first game. First game we recorded in not even a studio. It was an old mansion in Hollywood. And there was no soundproofing at all.
I don't think you can tell this story.
I recorded for 8 or 9 days, and David Hayter recorded for easily twice that much. And on Wednesdays and Thursdays were trash pickup. And anytime a trash truck came, we had to stop what we were doing because the girls came through.
The glamour, guys, the glamour.
Sexy job.
Motorcycle would come down the street, we had to stop. It was horrible. Now,
Mansions have a
Kojima
lot of
came in-
garbage, I hear.
Yeah, they do.
Kojima came in for Metal Gear 2, which was really the weird one, which is interesting that he was there for that one. The only time I met him in person was the second one. And his mind, the mind of Kojima is incredible. What he wrote in one, well, all of them, but especially one, was prescient. He saw the future in a lot of ways. Yeah, he's a brilliant mind, and it changed the way video games were made.
Yep.
You know, it just did.
Yeah, and his true visionary, definitely one of my favorite series, so thank you.
About 6 months ago, well, I don't know, maybe a year ago now, a fan asked me on Twitter, it was just when the Mueller indictments came out against the Russians, someone contacted me and said, boy, it'd be cool to have the Colonel Campbell read this indictment.
Yes!
So I did. I read the first page of it, and if you listen to it on YouTube, it sounds like something that Kojima would write in Metal Gear 1.
Wow.
It's incredible. It's uncanny.
Awesome. So, do you guys have questions for my lovely panel here?
Yeah.
You, sir, in the back.
Best part.
With video games being such a strange medium for actors, what have directors done to help you get your best performance?
Please. Oh, somebody.
They direct.
Thanks. Next question?
No.
End of list.
It is their responsibility and it's their passion to create that world for you and make sure that you stay consistent and honest in that world that you're not familiar with, that they have familiarized themselves with.
I will say, though, that I think everybody on this panel, we have an experience of seeing this art form it's still evolving constantly, consistently, and I see the powers that be in the booth still figuring things out too. Like, we come prepared and do our gig, but they still kind of like, what can we do to kind of mix it up? And I don't know if you guys know Gears of War 2, my character has this crazy scene that's very emotional, and I thought they were going to be like hesitant. They'd be like, no, Ferro, don't do that Marlon Brando bullshit that you do. Let's just do the shit and be done. And they were like excited. They're like, really? Like, are you really gonna cry? Like, it was really that level of like, are you gonna go there? And I was like, yeah. And they're like, good. All right. You know, it's not that fun. You know, it's gonna be fun on some level, but really it was a tough scene. They turned down the lights. They were trying to figure out everything to make me and John DiMaggio comfortable to do the acting. And I'd never experienced that. And now, whenever we do anything that's kind of heavy, they're like, what do you need? Who's gonna be in the room? Who's gonna be out? Are we gonna turn on the lights? But not for nothing. I mean, my character's arc is really sad, so, you know, they're turning down the lights a lot.
I found the director's gotten better and better.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
Early on, there was a time when you'd go in and you'd have a line, and they'd want you to, okay, let's do sets of 3. We'll do one shorter, mid-range, longer. And then they'd say, okay, let's do 3 more sets of 3. So you'd end up doing the same line, you know, like 10, 12, 14 times. And then because they weren't sure which one they were going to pick. They've gotten better over the years, and now they'll let you go up to half a page, or maybe a page, and then pick out the ones that didn't work. At least do one more pass or cover, just in case. And it's much easier, and it's much better for the actor because you get a flow of what's going on. So that's what I found. I found them being much better than they used to be. We were all learning.
Do we have another question?
You were saying, I was talking to Drake earlier today, getting into the voiceover field. I have a stand comedy background. Is it, when you're playing a character, like say for instance, like an old man or just a basic character, is it better to what playing a character as what you would think it is, or to bring yourself in, or to bring yourself into it? I don't know if you understand what I'm saying.
For me, as an actor, every character I do, no matter what, whether it's a wizard or a creature, there's always part of me that's infused in that. I can't get out of it. There are characters that you do because you're directed that way, or it's something that they want. We talked earlier today about a couple of games that, oh man, I listened to myself and said, wow, this dude can't act at all. But it's what
I still say that to myself.
But it's what they wanted. It's the sound they wanted, it's the character they wanted. I wasn't happy with it, but they were paying me. And as an actor's job is to give them, the producers and the directors, what they want. But as far as an actor is concerned, if I'm doing an older character, it's always part of who I am, you know. or whatever it is, it's still part of me. That's the only way I can work. It's not just a voice.
I have to add something to that. The best directors and casting people that I've ever worked with have consistently said the same thing, which is that the dilemma is always in casting, that they're not casting a voice, they're casting fully realized characters, but also they're getting a sense of your essence and how it fits in, and everybody wants to be on the same ripple of the same pond. And the best of them say that when they go through that casting dilemma and are pleased with the people they have, then in session, they try to get out of the way because they've already figured out there's something in you that plugs into the vision of this thing they're trying to make happen. Sounds conceptual, but it's very, very specific. And you don't know what that is, so what you have to bring to the party is you. And the rest sort of will take care of itself. The versatility that exists within you, they'll get a sense of if they're good at what they do.
I sort of want to know this from Steve. How much Bill Williamson is in you?
It's a very personal question, man.
I'm here to ask a tough question, Carlos.
I would say, I would say that compared to the first game, Bill and myself were polar opposites. But as director Rod Edge, who's a fabulous director, as you know, and the 5 years in secret we had making Red Dead 2, being in a prequel, we got to go into people like John Marston, Dutch Vanderlyn, Bill Williamson, and find out what made them tick. And because Rod came back and directed again, and we've known each other on and off for 10 years now, spent a lot of time together, and they really, as you all have played, if you played Red Dead 2, they've expanded on Bill exponentially. And because of that, we had more time to sit down. More, as I say, shards from within my character, Steve Palmer, were inserted and placed into Bill. And Bill is Bill's a lot more sensitive. You know, I'm a guy I'm a guy who wears my heart on my sleeve. If you get to talk to me on the floor, whatnot, I'm very cordial and stuff, and I'm a fellow geek like all you guys are. I'm a gamer myself. I'm geeking at those guys at the end because I grew up. You know,
Stop it.
Trying.
No, the other two
trying
guys.
to contain it.
Oh, go on. No, really, go on.
But there is more of a sensitivity to Bill Williamson in Red Dead 2. And from people who, what I get is very interesting. There are a couple people I've gotten to talk to who had played neither game. They have an Xbox One X, a backwards compatibility. They played 2 first, and as soon as they finished, they put in Red Dead 1. They played the whole thing in chronological order. And the people who've done that said to me, they go, Bill is the most tragic character in that, because deep down they thought he was a sweet guy, and part of his rage is that he's devouring himself because he just doesn't know how to express or communicate. And there were scenes that we did that hit me at certain times in my life that were very emotional scenes that Rod Edge helped pull me out, and I never thought I was acting in a video game. I felt like I was acting in something very Eugene O'Neill, very Shakespearean, and we were just acting, and it was serious work, and it would be white noise, and we'd do a scene, and we would all be like, holy crap, that was, you wouldn't expect that, but I think that's what's making video games such a unique medium of entertainment. You do something 20, 30 years ago, you're just adding a voice, it's like pow pow, oh, you got my arm, or what have you. Now we're competing against series like Game of Thrones, stuff on Netflix, the animators, the directors, the writers, they're treating these games like they're major motion pictures.
We've come a long way from Donkey Kong and Frogger.
Oh my goodness! And you need that. You need that basis to get where we are now. But as actors, I don't even think I need a mic anymore, just like talking loud. I feel like I think it's gonna be amazed as us as actors and performers, what the industry is gonna look like in 5 and 7 years.
Yeah.
You're gonna look back at this stuff like Red Dead 2 and be like, oh, everyone's doing that. You know, I can't imagine what it's gonna look like, but I think that's the great thing about it is I was able to grow as Bill Williamson because we were treating this very professional, like any set of a TV show I've been on or what have you, and I never once thought I was working on a video game. And I think that's a great thing about video games, because I think this industry is going to be able to give us the bit chomping roles we want as actors, where we don't have to worry about, 15, 20 years ago, you'd be in video games, it's like, oh, they're fun, they pay the bills. I'd love to do that HBO series, but right now, the games, it's like, there's HBO series, it's like, I wish we could be good as that video game.
Yeah,
I think that's where we're going. I think that's a great place to be.
yeah, and you guys have all been aware of this for years now, but now more than ever, I think everybody, all of us in the audience are starting to realize that you guys are making art. You're not just making video games, you're making art. So, I'd say we need some sort of Academy Award for video game acting. Best video game actor. So, all right, we got time for one or two more questions.
Yeah.
You.
Is there